Hey guys, Marslingan here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so yeah, the title says it all. Coming up very soon, we are going to have the new hardest content in Dokkan battle. So any of you guys out there who've already been struggling with like Baby and Android 13 and stuff like that, strap yourselves in, because as they say, we are in the end game now. So this video is going to be going up on Saturday the 30th UK time. It should be the 30th in the US as well by the time this video goes up. Basically, the part 3 stuff, which concludes of a bunch of Easy A's as well as the final red zone stages, is coming out on, I guess it'll be the 31st, depending on where you are. Like if you're in America, for me it comes out at 1 o'clock in the morning on the 1st. So obviously if you're, what, PST's like 8 hours behind the UK, so that's going to be what, like 5 o'clock in the afternoon or something. So basically the final stages of the red zone are going to be coming out, and as I say, they are the hardest stages so far, and of course they bring with them the 2 stages that I'm sure you've all heard quite a lot about if you follow the game and what goes on the JP side, and that is of course Omega Shenron and Broly. So we're gonna have a quick rundown. I did do a full guide with all of the bosses' stats and everything like just before the anniversary started, so if you want to search on the channel for that, that goes into a little bit more detail, goes into all the numbers like the amount of HP each boss has, the damage that they do, all that kind of stuff. We're just going to do a brief overview in this video. So we get 3 stages, so we've been getting them drip fed 2 at a time for the first 2 parts, but there are 7 stages overall, so we are getting 3 for the last part. I feel like they could have separated these maybe a bit better. Part 2 definitely felt a little bit empty, so maybe that could have done with 3 stages and then 2 in the last part, I'm not really sure. But we get 3 stages for both of the versions. So the first stage for the GT one is Super 17, our boy. You start off by fighting against Hellfighter 17 and just normal Android 17, or Trenchcoat 17 as we like to call him. And much like the stages have been going along, like in the early stages, you've been able to do status effects to the early enemies, especially in the movie boss ones, where you fight all the minions. But as you saw yourselves, I'm sure if you've tried Android 13 at this point, you could not stun or seal Android 14 or 15. So for these 2 guys, you can't stun, you can't seal, you can't attack lower them, you can't defense lower them, and they have a 7% chance to dodge. So other than that, they don't have any particular like special mechanics, so you can just go ham on them. One is physical, one is int. And then when you get to the second phase is of course against Super 17 himself, who is STR. He also can't be affected by any of these status effects. He has a 5% chance to dodge, but he fully negates and absorbs key-based super attacks. So this is one of those stages where you have to think really carefully about your team building before you go into the stage, because if you bring a whole team of units that have Ki Blast super attacks, I mean, if you have a whole team, you literally can't win unless you have like, you know, well actually even if you have LRs, I was gonna say if you have LRs that have like their 12 key super is a physical attack, so they get an additional. The next unit that you have that does a beam super is just going to heal him anyway. So you obviously need to be very, very careful. Now, the Part 1 LRs, the Gods and the Super Saiyan 4s, they obviously do have non-beam based super attacks because they do combos and stuff before their actual Ki Blasts, so those are fine. But just make sure you know the units that you're bringing in with you. Obviously you can still bring very strong defensive units who are weak offensively and have Ki Blast supers, because they're not going to be healing him as much, and obviously if that unit is a very strong defensive unit, they're going to be providing you a lot of extra utility. So an example for that would be like Ginyu's team with the Namek Saga and Terrifying Conquerors. You could run AGL Golden Frieza, who I'm pretty sure that the Death Ball that he does is considered a Ki Blast super attack, but he barely does any damage. So he wouldn't be healing Super 17 for all that much, but obviously will be tanking incredibly well. So there is a bit of a trade-off, but yeah, when it comes to your hard-hitting units that you're bringing to actually, you know, finish off the fight and get the job done, make sure you're not bringing units that have a ton of Ki Blast super attacks. And other than that, shouldn't be too much difficulty. So then we go on to the Shadow Dragons. Now this one, I tried this out on my side JP account. I eventually managed to beat it because I did pull the Father, Son, Gallic, Gun, Trunks and Vegeta and both of the Anniversary LRs. But it was very difficult with both of them at 55%, and the fact that on JP I don't really link level and stuff like that. So this one is 6 phases against each of the Shadow Dragons, obviously apart from Sin and Omega. None of them can be stunned or sealed or attack lowered or defense lowered. And they basically go through all of the typings with physical being the one that is repeated. So that means you can't like load up on a team with a specific typing and not have to face any type disadvantage. So any units you bring will have to face type disadvantage in at least one of the phases. So the first one is very straightforward. The second one absorbs Ki Blast supers, so be careful about that. Obviously it is only him that does it, so if you have a couple of units that only have Ki-based super attacks, it's not the end of the world. You just have to be careful how you play that stage. Then you got Oceanus, who randomly changes Ki spheres, which is pretty annoying when you're trying to plan out Ki for the next turn, but it's not the end of the world. The fourth guy can seal super attack of one targeted unit at the start of the turn, 40% chance to do that, so obviously that's RNG. Hopefully you don't want a unit that gets all of their defense by super attacking to get sealed, otherwise you have to try and make sure you can hide them away from attacks. Then we have Nova, who has a 10% chance to dodge, which is slightly higher than some of the other bosses, but that's the only ability that he has. And then the final stage is against physical Ice Shenron, who can lock your characters in place, which, as we've discussed many times on the channel, is my least favourite mechanic in the game. And obviously if you have a slightly weaker team, like with me trying to do this with my JP account, you know, there's always the possibility that your worst unit on that turn gets locked in like slot 1 where there's like 5 attacks. And unfortunately, unless you've brought a Senzu Bean or one of those items that clears status effects, which are, you know, not usually the item that you want to bring into the red zone, if you can't get rid of that status effect, then it's an auto lose in a lot of those situations. So that can be very, very frustrating. So those are the kind of things you have to think about when building your team. You definitely don't want to bring a ton of units that get all of their defense after they super attack. So, and then of course finally we have Sin Shenron, the last stage. Now this one is interesting because the first stage, he can randomly seal one of your characters, he can lock your characters in place, he randomly changes orbs, he attack lowers you with his super attack, he defense lowers you with his super attack, and he can stun you with his super attack. So he can do a lot of things, but as you may notice, compared to some of these other ones and even the stages below, these two very important icons are missing: the cannot be stunned and cannot be sealed. He does not have those. So the first phase can be stunned and sealed. So this is something to bear in mind when building your team. This can make the first phase very, very easy. So when you move on to the second phase, STR, Sin Shenron, he obviously then can't be stunned or sealed, can't be attack or defense lowered, whereas this guy can as well, which is obviously very useful. If you seal him and attack lower him in phase 1, then you're going to be pretty good. But then, yeah, the second phase also changes Ki spheres and has a 5% chance to dodge, but doesn't have any other special mechanic other than that. And then the final phase, when you get to our man Omega Shenron himself, can't be stunned, sealed, or any of those status effects. He also randomly changes orbs. He has a 5% chance to dodge, and he has a countdown super attack. So this works just like Baby. If you've already had a few attempts on the Baby stage, his super attack will always be the last attack on the second turn. So that gives you the ability to kind of place your units on that turn, so that a unit that can potentially dodge or nullify or anything like that can eat the super. Bear in mind, his super does a ridiculous amount of damage, so a unit who isn't a very strong tank, or, you know, is going to dodge or something like that, is going to take a lot of damage if you do not have an item up. So obviously, you know, one strategy for this is to use a Ghost Usher, which buys you a turn, but then you're still going to have that super attack in slot 3. So I do think damage reduction items are probably the best. And yeah, just be very aware that that is where he will always super attack. So depending on who you're running or who you're bringing is to be your defensive units, you can make sure that the unit that you want to be taking the super is in the third slot on the second turn. So those are the 3 new stages for the GT one. Omega is right up there as being one of the hardest stages, although a lot of people would argue that he's not actually the second hardest, and we will go over that now with the movie bosses version. So stage 5 for movie bosses is Bojack, and this is the one, unironically, I've seen a lot of people discuss that Bojack could actually be harder than Omega, and I will tell you why. So in the first phase, you fight his 4 minions, and none of them can be stunned. They can be sealed, but they cannot be stunned. There's 4 enemies, so if Super Battle Road has taught us anything, it's that when you have multiple enemies, you have multiple chances of eating multiple supers in one turn, which is not ideal. But once you clear through all of those, you get to Int Bojack. Can't be affected by any status effects. He randomly changes key spheres, and he has a 5% chance to dodge. Nothing really too crazy there, pretty straightforward. And then you get on to Tech Full Power Bojack. So no status effects, changes orbs, can lock you in place and seal you, which can give you the literal 1-2 punch automatic lose combo of sealing somebody or locking somebody in slot 1 and then sealing them so they can't super attack. So that could be a unit, again, like we talked about previously, that you need to super to get your defense. Locked in slot 1, maybe there aren't any attacks before they get to attack, maybe there's only 1, and they're going to take, you know, a little chunk of damage, but then they would at least get to attack afterwards. But oh, now they're sealed as well, so they're not getting their super attack either. So I have literally watched people on stream do runs of Bojack where they were having, like, you know, an absolutely stellar run, and then you get to this third phase, and then boom, just instant L. Like, worst possible unit, locked and sealed in front of, like, 5 attacks, and it's just game over. So, obviously, again, you got to be smart with your item usage. I would bring damage reduction items like a Whis, and if you get the worst case scenario of having, you know, the worst possible unit locked and sealed, just use a Whis, or even 2, depending on how weak that unit is defensively, if you can actually manage to get to the third phase with all your items. I mean, the stage has been beaten no items, but obviously not everybody is going to be able to do that. So Bojack, I have seen people argue as the second hardest stage overall, harder than Omega, because the first stage can be stunned and sealed, so the first phase can be super easy, whereas Bojack, the first phase, you're fighting 4 enemies who cannot be sealed, so they could repeatedly, they can be sealed but they can't be stunned, but you could still eat multiple supers in one turn, so not great. Then we go on to Janemba, who funnily enough is considerably easier than Bojack. Fat Janemba is the first stage, can't have any status effects, but that's literally the only mechanic that he has. And then when you get onto the second phase, no status effects for Super Janemba. He changes key spheres, he has a 10% chance to dodge, and he has a rage meter, which I believe, in the guide that I made previously, it has the actual details, and I can't remember off the top of my head what they are. I think it's like 5 or 6 supers. Once he's eaten a certain number of super attacks, he goes into his rage mode, which basically just changes his typing from int to physical. I think it ups some of his stats a little bit, like his attack power, obviously not his HP. He keeps the same health bar, so you can have him transform into rage mode and just be dead on that turn. And he just has the exact same mechanics, same dodge chance and everything. So Janemba is actually quite straightforward, and like I said, unironically, probably easier than Bojack, even though he is the stage that comes after him. And then last but not least, we have Broly, the fight that many have called not only the hardest, but the most unfair fight in the game. Now, the first phase, we kind of start off like Omega. STR, he can be attack lowered and stunned and sealed, so not too bad. He can't be defense lowered, and you can't dodge. So remember, that is a theme for the entire fight. You cannot dodge against Broly. So do not bring any units who literally get any of their defensive power from dodging. Like, if a unit has to dodge, even if they only ever have to dodge once, if a unit has to dodge to be good defensively, you cannot bring them into this stage. Well, I mean, you can, as long as they never get hit or you have, you know, items up or whatever. But yeah, dodging is completely disabled. So the second phase, then you can't do any status effects, but there's no other mechanics other than the fact that you can't dodge. So just a straightforward tech enemy. I say straightforward, he's still the hardest boss, so he still hits you very, very hard. Then we have the STR phase. Now, the STR phase, again, no status effects are available. You can't dodge, of course, and he does an AoE super attack. So his super attack hits all of your units. Now, the problem with this for a lot of team builds is, again, if you have units that have to attack first to get their defense, and then he's AoEing in slot 1, well, that's it. They're getting hit before they get to super attack. So you have to be very careful with your team building. One of the strategies that I've seen people use that can be quite effective is to bring Whis as your item and then literally just double Whis on the STR phase, because then you get 2 turns to kill Broly, where even if he AoEs you in both turns, the double Whis will protect you from basically taking any damage. And I say that, I've tried this myself on my JP account, and weaker units, like even the anniversary LRs at 55%, not having that much build-up, will still take some damage from his AoE. It's only like 10, 20k, but they will still take some damage even with items up. So you have to be very, very careful. Broly is the hardest fight in the game for a reason. And then when you get onto the final phase, AGL, the only major difference is that he can super attack twice within the same turn. It doesn't mean that he will, but he can. And his super attack, based solely on his stats and not factoring in your defense, does over 1,000,000 damage. So you have to be very careful. Now, he does have type disadvantage to the LR gods, which is why a lot of people just burn items to get through the AoE phase, and then once you get to this phase, you can beat him down with the LR gods, God Goku, like these powerful tech units. So, unironically, the final stage can often be not as difficult as the third stage, but it kind of depends where like the super attack placements are and stuff like that. So, good luck. Broly definitely is the biggest challenge in the game currently. So, let me know what you guys are thinking in terms of your team builds for these stages. Like I say, I did do those more comprehensive guides with the details about all the bosses. And then, of course, the only other thing to mention is we get more tickets, obviously, for doing each of these missions, for completing the stages. And when these stages come out, we finally get the banners release. So this is the GT one. These are the featured units. The general pool, I think, has all the other SSRs as well that are in the normal general pool. And we also have these 3 LRs that are GT related, which is not bad. We know these guys are getting an easy A on JP now, the GT trio. LR Super 17's gotten a little bit better with some of the Android buffs and the Cell team. Baby, we're just waiting until I guess we get a Dokkan Fest Baby or something. But the funny thing is, when you compare this to the movie bosses banner, I mean, all of the featured units are significantly better. Like, Goten and Trunks are still pretty good, so's 18. Raffle Broly, unfortunately, fell off a little bit. God Goku, of course, one of the best, like, you know, side banner, well, I say side banner, but, like, general pool units in the game. And then, because movies are so much more common, look how many LRs are on this banner. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pull one, but there's a lot more LRs available on this one, including units as new as Janemba, who is actually a very good pull if you get him off of these tickets. So these banners will be available once the stages come out, so you can use the tickets that you've already got, and then obviously you get more tickets for completing the other missions. So let me know, like I say, what teams you guys are thinking of using. Are you looking forward to this? How did you get on with the other stages? Did they give you a bit of a beating and you're a little bit scared, or are you going in full confident that you're going to be able to get this done? I'm interested to see where you guys are gauging the upcoming final stages, so let me know down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.